This is the one printed on the Dragon Hotend. You can see some things, little inclusions there, but it's pretty smooth. There's that little artifact there, which happens on a few of them. I've noticed there's a bit more kind of, I don't know if it's ringing is the right word for it on this, but that could also be down to different tensions in my X-axis belt, because obviously that was taken off. The edges look similar. This does look to be a little bit cleaner in various areas, and I'll probably put that down to the new nozzle, because I had to recalibrate this as well with the Live Z, and sorry, the low cube, and this by far has produced the most accurate kind of wall thicknesses that I've seen, and I'm only putting that down to the nozzle widths, but it has printed so well, and I could immediately see it when I switched to this Hotend. So that's the Dragon, and you can see in the bottom here, and I've tried to stay with the same Live Z as the other one, as the first print. As in, you can see it's not super squished, and then if we look at the one that came out of the stock one, you can see it's similar. I mean, there's that same kind of line artifact, so that must be in the model. They're both relatively good prints, but you can see that this is more horizontal lines, I think, where this one here, there seems to be some kind of banding, I think. But, you know, inspection-wise, it still looks pretty good, and I think that this part here, the structure, has come out a lot better, so that the bridging seems to have performed better on this, and the top is cleaner. So if you see that this one here, you can see that the sides have got a bit more noise there, or layer shifting, or whatever you want to call it. Same applies there. You can see a little bit more overhanging from the bridging, whereas if you look at this one, the bridging, you can't even see it. So the Dragon really is performing significantly better in these kind of areas. At least that's my impression. I mean, that's why I've done the video, to show you the two. And there's the top of the E3D. It just looks a little bit more coarse than that, but that could also come down to the layer height. Interestingly, another observation that I've made, I mean, it does look different. There's the base of the Dragon, and then if you look at this one here, you can see how the layers aren't coming down straight. You can see that there's, I'll just try and get my finger in there and there you can see, whereas here it's not as obvious. I mean, that's just a string there. And also, this is what I thought was really bizarre, was that the text seems to be a bit larger here. So if you look at that CT3D XY, you can see how the Y comes all the way here, whereas if we now compare it to the E3D print, it's actually smaller. See that? So I'll have to check my slicer settings, unless I had more walls in this one, and it's pushed the perimeters, but they should have been identical settings. So it's using the pretty PLA profiles, and you can see there's more stringing in this as well. So it must be the copper nozzle and heat break is doing something differently that's preventing the stringing, because it's exactly the same profile. I did do a PID calibration though with this new one. However, I had done that many times with the E3D one, but so they're very similar outputs, but I do think that this has come out, you know, marginally better. But you know, each to their own. It certainly hasn't made things worse. But yeah, I mean, I can always tell. I mean, that's the E3D one. It's just a little coarser, the top as well, but equally that could come down to, I mean, because that's still a good side. As is that though. As I said, when I first changed the nozzle and I was doing my first layer checks, I even used the Prusa one, I could immediately tell a difference, that the filament was coming out evenly, and I was having problems with the actual width of the filament. Seemed to be inconsistent, especially with a Live Z cube. A couple of corners were way off, and then when I did my low cube again, I think I found, because I wrote these down on subsequent tests, I found that it was 0.473, 0.74, 0.73, 0.473. So they were well in line, whereas before I had variances, you know, where if that's that 473, it would even go down to 0.444. That's why I always struggle to try and get the right extrusion multiplier. But equally, that could also have been my nozzle. But that's kind of the initial analysis. I've got another print coming through, which is doing one of these. So this is printed on the E3D nozzle, and it's come out really rough. But it's okay there, but over here the text isn't legible, not by a long shot, and lots of stringing. So I'll be keen to see what happens with this one. So it's currently doing that now. I'll just turn that light off. It's setting out the layer, but you know, I don't think you can really get anything out of it. But it really is. It's laying a lot better. I mean, even the priming line, just for me. So perhaps there was an issue with mine, but it's snug in there, nice and clean, and the nozzle's really nice. Oh, one other really nice thing about the nozzle is because it's plated. When filament goes on it, I can just use a paper towel to wipe off the excess nozzle filament. It doesn't stick on there. No more wire brushes damaging your nozzle tip. So that's definitely another plus for at least this. However, I guess you could get a plated. I've not seen whether E3D sell plated nozzles, but that certainly also helps too.